Right, morning. Welcome, everybody. We just a bunch of happy networkers here, and we are talking about Mastermind Alliances. So and some people used to call them Mastermind Groups, but we have a new kid on the block, and he's calling them Alliances. So that's a good thing. So who's in your Mastermind Alliance? Try and get that out of my mouth this morning. Yeah, definitely been happy networking a bit too much. Who's in your alliance? Why are they in your alliance? And what value can they add to you and to them? So to be seeing that this is your topic, well, at least stimulated by you, Lee decided to put you on the block. Who's in your alliance this morning and why? Yeah, lionesses. I love lionesses. They're very good networkers. They collaborate nicely.
Okay. Today I want to talk about Coca-Cola. In the late 1880s, Coca-Cola wanted to turn their 2 million into like $2 trillion by 2034. And their plan to actually get there was to use classical conditioning and operant conditioning. Now, classical conditioning is how you learn, like naturally. So that fire is hot because it burns you, so that's classical conditioning. And operant conditioning is taught and like, sort of like wearing a mask and like, hand sanitizer. To make their conditioning, like effective, they used excessive advertising. Their marketing has always been psychological. There's just something about seeing like a hot woman that you have absolutely no chance with drinking a bottle of Coca-Cola. It is psychological. It appeals to the subconscious mind. Like Coke have always been subconscious. And distribution was also like a thing. Coca-Cola needed to be available everywhere, for them to be able to like to turn 2 million into $2 trillion by 2034. They could have achieved this like earlier, but there's always problems, but they are well on their way, like Coke is doing very well. Now, I think that a successful mastermind alliance needs to have, smart and intelligent people who can actually plan and forecast for the future, like the guys at Coca-Cola actually did. They had plans, they had a way to actually get there. They are pushing. It needs a lot of enthusiasm, and capital deployment. Money is a big thing because it is how you get things done. Money is energy, and it is important because by now we have the minimum viable product, so we have to get our product out there. A successful mastermind alliance needs reflexive thinkers, analytical thinkers, practical thinkers whose ideas are grounded in reality. Because the guys whose ideas are grounded in reality, they win. Ultimately, business is like a team sport. Whoever has the best team, the best game plan, and capital has a better chance of winning. And there must be this good chemistry for it to actually work. There must be confidence and trust so that the mastermind alliance can be successful. I think that's the ideal mastermind alliance. I'll give you an example of like the greatest mastermind alliance ever, in my opinion. And I think that the greatest for me has to be Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. They are excellent. Like Munger actually changed Buffett's whole investment philosophy. Buffett was a guy who actually used to buy small companies and he would wait for them to like increase, or he would buy companies and just strip them for parts. But Munger was like, no, man, no, that's no, you can't do that. Let's just focus on buying quality companies at a fair price. So it actually changed that. I think Buffett liked Munger because he was intelligent, you know. Buffett at the time already had money. So he needed someone who was actually on the same wavelength, you know, as him. And like Munger was like smart and intelligent and like not as, you know, alliance, and together they generate rather, you know. I think that in a successful mastermind alliance, you have to work together, you know. There has to be that thing to actually, you have to want to, you have to want to succeed, you know. And I think that's just my contribution on the whole Mastermind Alliance thing. So thank you, Ivan.
Thanks, Tabisa. But I want to know who's in your Mastermind Alliance and why.
My Mastermind Alliance, I'm still searching. Let's just leave it. Still searching. I'm still.
All right. Okay. Well, maybe some of the discussion will help you in your search. So, Lee, who's in your Mastermind Alliance? And I know it's not Trevor because he just stuffed up.
I'm choosing none of you guys.
Before Lee starts, I just want to backtrack and state that my Mastermind Alliance is a subgroup of the Wisdoms Group.
There you go. Oh, that was a good rescue. Good rescue. Well done, Trevor.
The question is, which sub?
Listen, I must admit, there were two strains of thought when I was thinking about this, and actually, when I said none of you guys are in it, I just think this is an amazing group. I love this group. So in terms of the thinking, in terms of the diversity, in terms of the pull and the push, in terms of the experience, there is definitely, I'm very, very happy to be here. So in terms of the alliances that I have, I'm entirely satisfied. However, I did want to push myself and think out the box a little bit to this imaginary alliance. So if I could pick anybody in the world, and I said no rules, so it could be somebody from history, it could be an imaginary person, but I've actually chosen people who are living today. It's still, of course, entirely impossible, but I thought this would be an interesting group. So in my Mastermind Alliance is Jacinda Ardern. And I've chosen her, one, because I think she's fabulous. Two, because her leadership capacity and ability is absolutely outstanding. So I think I've got a lot to learn from her. And I think she would steer the ship in a way that is really is true to the values that I believe in. And then I wanted to have somebody on my team who is inspiring and just has a combination of, and I know Tabisa a lot of uses this yin and yang, and this person I think has it, and he's a young social media guru, but his name is Jay Shetty. So, and I think my South African accent doesn't really say his surname very well. It's Shetty. He is English, and at the age of 26 became a Buddhist monk, and then left. That's after being a drug addict and I mean, just going very, very well in going a downward path, then became a monk. and is now basically an inspiring talker, content developer, as you would say, to be so, and YouTube star. So Jay Shetty's on my list. Then I wanted somebody who's business-minded, who's got money, who knows how to build a business, who's got, and I don't know a lot about this business. I was trying to find a business that I felt I could align with in some way, and not just from a values perspective, but from technical perspective, because I think that is the way that we're going. So I've chosen Safra Catz. Safra Catz is an Israeli American woman who is the CEO of Oracle. She's also a billionaire banker and a fascinating person. And I just think top of her game in an incredibly competitive industry and cutting edge technology. And I think she would be an amazing addition. And then there's two further people. The one is, I thought I needed somebody in my alliance who made me think and would push me out of my comfort zone and would be different to my normal way of thinking. And so I told you I read this book, Sapiens, Brief History of Humankind. And this is an historian who was able, in the space of 300 pages, to go from Neanderthals through to the new tech human beings that are hybrid human and robots. And he challenged my thinking because he also argued in his book around a lot of things that I had to struggle with and think through about myths and beliefs and so on. So he would be a fascinating person. His name is Yuval Harrari. And again, I'm thinking about diversity. Yuval is a Jewish gay man who I think practices Buddhism. So very interesting person. And then the last person I would have on my, oops, Tabisa's gone. Oh, Ivan's gone. Sorry, Tabisa, you're there. The last person I would have on my alliance is a young black chap from Tembisa. And his name is Bulelani Tembi, and I would have him on my team because he has bootstrapped his way to be a millionaire. And he's clever. He's got political alliances. And you know, Edward used the word guile, and Bulelani is somebody who you love to love. He is a big, bold person, but he knows how to network. He knows who he needs to have in his corner. And he's become very successful from a very, very low base. So that's my alliance. I'm excited.
So Ivan's not around. So no, you're on mute, Lee.
You go for it, Trevor. Ivan's not here, so you go for it now.
Yeah, no, I'm so pleased you had plenty of magic mushrooms down there in, where was it, Hermanus, watching the, geez, have you come back refreshed? That's fantastic, Lee. Look, you know, I made a note there on Mastermind Groups, Mastermind Alliances. I like that, Tabisa. You better trademark that because we're going to steal it if it's not trademarked within the next 10 minutes. And the one thing about Mastermind Alliances, I mean, if you just evaluate the different names being bandied about already, there are so many phenomenal people around the world but they're just not given the opportunity to actually come together and multiply 20x the result of their inputs. And mastermind alliances only work when you put the ideas into action. So I think at the moment, the trap that's happening during COVID and right now with Zoom technology, and where we are thinking of having these meetings online, I think people are utilizing more for socializing than they are for actually utilizing them for, how do I take this discussion and turn it into positive action, whether it be changing, the effect of plastics on the environment, or saving all the fish in the sea, as Ed wants to do, and all of those sort of things. You've got to put these things into positive action. And a mastermind group is necessary to make certain that when you go through the dips, when you're going to go through the dips, that they help you to stay grounded. So Mastermind Group can actually offer the helicopter views and some practical insights, but actually more than anything else can lift you through those valleys. So, man, I've written about this. I talked of it in Confessions of a Serial Entrepreneur in the mid-90s, I think, as an imaginary board of advisors. That to me was what I believe everyone has to build, because I think of business in terms of boards. And so I selected a group of 10 or so originally back then. And in those days, I can remember selecting people like, I was influenced by the Zig Ziglars of this world. I had Christ as the moral authority and CEO of the board because of the 10 Commandments, which gave great positive moral values to any board. Thou shalt not kill, and thou shalt not do negative things, let's say. And then I'm trying to think, you see, in my 67th year, someone's got to keep me on track here, Ed. The guy who creative thinking, man, De Bono, Edward De Bono, those type of guys, Zig Ziglar I mentioned, and Warren Buffett was on that, Bill Gates was on that. So Tobisa, they're mine. You can't have them in your group. I trademarked them in my book. So please remove any link to them at all in your Mastermind Alliance. But then lately, over the last 2-3 years, people that have really impressed me for their futuristic thinking, and this is going to upset Ed in a big way, they will be on my Mastermind Alliance: Peter Diamandis, Ray Kurzweil, those type of individuals. Because I think they are looking into the future, and they have a good understanding, good track record as far as I'm concerned, and potentially, if they're only 84% right over the next 20 to 30 years, I want to be there. And then I love learning of these individuals that have come from nowhere, just as Lee has identified, out of Alex, I think you said. People like this, we've got to find these people so that we can bring them into different groupings, because the world is, over the next 10 to 20 years, 98% of everything that we know and see in business today probably won't exist. There are going to be new ideas, new opportunities, new brands, and it's those guys that we want on our brands. I mean, Tobisa, for instance. And then you need someone like Ed. So I'm going to have Tobisa as the accelerator to get our young minds in, and then Ed, the accountant, as the brake, and then Ed, the social communist, to make certain that he uplifts society and does all the power of good that I know this guy can do. No, we've got to be open-minded to the people that we actually bring into our alliances, and make certain that they can actually balance some individuals like Ivan, who just goes off the wall with crazy thoughts and never follows a process. We need to balance someone like him with people who are process oriented and understand that you've got to have backstops, the foundation of business, people who can deliver and who are committed. So those are my thoughts.
Okay, well, I don't know. Well, we'll just have to deal with you when we get there. Right, Ed, who's in your alliance?
Yeah, I love the power of sort of subtle suggestion, because I noticed when Tabiso started talking about hot women, Lee took her shawl off. Don't know why, but just noticed that. I was interested that this concept comes from 1937. So I'm kind of thinking, well, maybe Tabiso's the reincarnation of someone else, because how does he know about stuff from way back then? You know, it staggered me. But I think mastermind can mean different things to different people. In the UK, I'm not sure whether you get it in South Africa. We got a program called Mastermind. It's been running for a long time, but it's all about knowledge. And people are quizzed on their specialist knowledge, which could be anything from nuclear physics to who's won the most football matches, depending on where your specialism lies. And then they have general knowledge, and the winner is of the whole series is the guy that gets most questions right. But I think they'd be useless in business. And actually, most of them aren't business people. They are, because I don't think knowledge actually is what you need. And as Trevor says, you need action to make things happen. And I think knowledge is only a very small piece of business success. And you can always get that knowledge from other people. And I thought, well, let's have a look at this word and see what it does mean. You know, I love my dictionary. So I looked at a master in the dictionary, and it's the one who owns, cares for, and controls an animal. Try telling that to a cat. A person who employs a servant or a slave, and a person who has control over a particular situation. Now, that didn't strike me you want any of those in any sort of alliance, because they would dominate. Interesting, actually, the female version of master, mistress, has a completely different connotation, which I found quite interesting. And then I thought, well, I better look up mastermind itself. And it's a person with an outstanding intellect, or the verb to plan and direct an ingenious and complex scheme or enterprise. And all that mastermindy stuff is about controlling. And I remember when I was in financial services, we used to do long-term insurance and very complicated calculations as, you know, when someone's going to die and all that sort of stuff. And the actuary was the guy who was the expert in that area. And no one ever questioned him because they thought he was right all the time. So I think when you've got your group, it must be a group of equals. And that everyone's there. And actually, if you read up about this alliance, this mastermind group or mastermind alliance, it talks about harmony. So you must all get on together. You must be all working towards the same goal. You might have your differences and what's and pieces, but you must all be working to the same goal in harmony. It's no good if you're pulling in different directions. So I thought, well, that's interesting. And I have started thinking, actually, you know, my Forest for Camborne project, I have started thinking about who would be in my mastermind group. I haven't called it a mastermind group. I just thought, well, who would give this thing buzz, zing? And I think perhaps we ought to call it a bright spark group, or a ignition group, or a propulsion group. And there's two people so far. A guy called Tim Smith, who was the guy that had the vision of turning a whopping great big quarry in Cornwall into one of the biggest visitor attractions in the UK. And he developed the Eden Project. That took millions and millions of money to get it going. And it took a lot of drive and enthusiasm and everything else. And it needed a lot of technological stuff to it. It needed a lot of, because the way that the biomes are formed from these hexagonal bits that are inflated with air, but you can stand a car on them. It's amazing how they pump all the water out of the quarry, because of course when it rains in a quarry it tends to fill up a bit. Not a good idea when it's full of people. The way they've landscaped the grounds, the way it's amazing. And he had to convince everyone that that was a good idea. And now he's looking at building more throughout the world. So Tim Smith knows how to get stuff done. He knows how to bring people together. He's also a bit of a, he swears a lot, which I don't like swearing, but never mind. And the other person I would get is a guy called Chris Hines. Now he's a surfer dude. He's probably about my age actually. And he started an organization called Surfers Against Sewage. I don't know whether you guys have heard of it. It's all about making sure the water quality is good in surfing areas, because a lot of places we used to discharge our sewage straight into the ocean untreated. And of course, if you're surfing in untreated water, you tend to get ill. So they started Surfers Against Sewage, and they were the first direct action charity, I suppose. They took a whole load of, what's in a sewage works, and dumped it on the streets of Downing Street in front of the Prime Minister. They really got loads and loads of people behind it, and they started doing this stuff. And Surfers Against Sewage now, you know, we have got really good clean beaches in Cornwall. It started off as a Cornwall initiative. It's now worldwide, and it's well respected. And it's gone from being this rebellious organization to almost a corporate type thing. Chris Hines has left now because he doesn't feel he fits in. And he's just a charismatic character. I met him once for a coffee, and then a while later I went to a series of talks, and they had this guy, Sam Bleakley, who's the Blakely, I can't remember his name. He used to be the world longboarding champion. And he gave this talk about surfing, and he traveled the world. He gave this talk about surfing the world, and everyone in the crowd except me was a surfer dude. And it was a fantastic talk. And then they asked Chris up to talk. I thought, well, how's he going to follow that? How is Chris going to follow that? And he talked with passion about campaigning, about being irreverent, about how to get things done. And he brought the house down, absolutely brought the house down. So that guy really knows how to engage with people. And he knows when to be bolshy, when to be polite and kind and inclusive. And I think he's the guy that would really bring people in. So that's my Master Alliance so far, is Tim Smith and Chris Hines. And just to pick up on one thing, when you were talking about your Mastermind Alliance, you were saying it would never happen. Well, why not? Why would it never happen? It could happen if you made it happen. So that's my thoughts. Oh, and one last thing. Today is the UK Earth Overshoot Day. It's the day that if the whole world acted like the UK, we would use up a whole year's worth of natural resources by this day. By the 19th of May, would have used more natural resources than the Earth can generate in a year. Just have a think about that.
I think we better shut the UK down in that case. Switch them off. Switch them off. We don't need those kinds of people.
We aren't the worst.
Yeah. So this is what mastermind means to me. Any of you know that one? Yeah. That I took that little board game back in 1982 and turned it into a computer game. So it was the very first computer program I ever wrote, and it was written on a ZX Spectrum computer. And I bought the ZX Spectrum on a Saturday morning here in the middle of Joburg. Took it home, plugged it into cathode ray television. Thabisa, you know what that is? And my cassette tape recorder, and sat down and learned how to program it. And 2 o'clock on Sunday morning, I had a working mastermind game on my ZX Spectrum computer. So that's that. Well, okay, not really, but no, really, I did do that, but it's not really my Mastermind Alliance. So, when you started speaking about mastermind, and back in the day, Edward, you know, you said 1937. Well, no, it wasn't quite 1937, but 1982 is probably just as far back for Thabisa as 1937 is. We'll take a bit of literary license there. But it's interesting, you know, Ed commented on Lee's comment about not being able to get a mastermind group together. Thabisa sort of said he hasn't really decided, but in fact, he's already got a mastermind group. He's got Nietzsche, he's got Buffett, he's got what's that funny oak from Apple? Some guys from Pixar, and a few others. So he's already got a mastermind group that he's built around him, and he doesn't even know it. And that's the power of what's available today and what you can actually do. You can put your ideal mastermind group around you, and leverage them without ever having met them. And I think that's what some of the greats in life and business have done over the years, and tell you to do. So pick those names, pick those people. And Lee started off by saying living or dead. You know, it doesn't really matter. If you can gain access to their knowledge, their insights, and be inspired and energized by what they've done, what they've achieved, what they say, what they've written, you have a mastermind group. So the next question is, and it's a question that Trevor loves, is how do you take action on that? So, you know, build that team around you. Get that knowledge. I mean, Thabisa, you've got a wealth of knowledge that you've gained from reading these people's books and so on, and many of us have followed that exact same route. They are your foundation of your mastermind. The question is, what are you going to do with that information? What are you going to do with that knowledge? How are you going to allow it to connect you mentally to new paradigms, to new ideas, to new things that you can actually do? Look, it's always useful to be able to talk to people as well, and that's why it is useful to have some people around you that you can connect with directly, whether it's via Zoom or physically. But with that wealth of knowledge that you can gain from those that you can't physically connect to, you can actually energize a group and really start to make things happen. So for me, that's where the beauty of what we have at our fingertips here with the internet really comes into its own. So use it for the right ends, because you can also disappear down the rabbit hole. I think on the internet, if you're not too careful, in social media and all that sort of nonsense, and you can connect to funny people like, politicians and drug addicts, and I don't know why you would want to do that, but anyway, each to our own, Haley. Yeah. Find the right people to connect to, be inspired by them, and if they inspire you, great. So yeah, I've tapped into many of those some names that we've spoken about. I've spoken about Stephen Kotler and Jamie Wheel, who I find very interesting fellows with some very way out ideas in some areas. It's all about stretching your mind, stretching your thinking, and then seeing what you can do with that practically. So yeah, I think that's me on Mastermind Alliances. So yeah, where are we? Yeah, whoa, way past the bottom of the hour. So good. It happens when you get into a Mastermind Alliance. You know, can't stop talking. Right, Lee. Tomorrow.
I was going to say, I'm hoping somebody's got an idea.
It is. There you go.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me right. My internet's playing up. When I was researching the mastermind thing, I was reminded of the concept of, I don't know if you've come across it, foxes, sheep, owls, and donkeys. It's a grouping of how politically acute you are. And the concept is, I mean, don't be a donkey is kind of the key one. But like if you're an owl,
okay.
If you're an owl, you're very wise, but you're not very cunning. Whereas a fox is very cunning, but's got no morals. And it's all about, you know, if you're an owl, then work with a fox, but keep your distance from the fox, and the same with the sheep. I just wondered if there's anywhere in that, in how do we work with people who've got the skills or the things that we don't have, but how do we stop that from polluting us? You know, so for example, if I wanted someone who was like money driven, how would I work with them without being money driven? I don't know whether Lee can spin that into something that's worth working for, and it might be worth looking up that thing: fox, sheep, owl, and donkey.
And if I can add to that, you pushed my button when you said you want a team in total harmony. Well, do me a favor, get Michael Jackson and the Blind Guy to sing Black and White and that sort of thing. You've got to have disharmony in a team to actually push the envelope out there. So yes, I think it's a lovely direction to go, but summarize it into a topic. Lee, I defy you.
Yeah, well, the saying is, you know, if you surround yourself with people who are the same as you, all of you except one of you are redundant. So you need some conflict. You need some pollution, Ed. I mean, how can you bring pollution into a discussion like this? I mean, really.
I'm simply going to call the topic Animal Farm.
Animal Farm.
Oh.
All right. Okay, so we're back on in 20 minutes, 21 minutes maybe. Back on at UK Wisdom's Chats, same ID. See you there, but go out and farm some animals in the meantime. And then we're back on at 3 p.m. our time, 2 p.m. UK time, 8 a.m. Central American time in the US, where we're going to visit Fort Madison. So yeah, if we don't see you on any of those, have a great day. And we'll see you tomorrow morning talking farming.